that spans the county looking for interesting people. Today's interesting person is Arthur Blansitt, fencing instructor and maestro. Mr. Blansitt, tell us a little bit about what got you started in this interesting sport.
Sometime between 11 and 8 years old, I decided to read a book called The Three Musketeers, written by Alexander Dumas. And from that point on, I wanted to be a swordsman.
Was there a particular character you wanted to be more than?
No, I just wanted to learn how to use a sword. Okay. So I saw all the movies, and as every kid does, and I had a great misconception of what fencing was, until finally I got a chance to go to a fencing meet in St. Louis, where I came from, St. Louis, Missouri. And so I began, at that time, I began to learn, and the war came along, and I stopped learning fencing and learned something else for a while. Then I came home, and I went back to fencing, and then Korea came along, so I stopped learning to fence there, and I went and done something else for a while. And finally came home after Korea, and at that time, my fencing instructor in St. Louis suggested that I go to New York, and there was a gentleman there, Santelli, and he was notorious worldwide. He'd been twice a world champion in 2 weapons. His father had been a fencing master before him and had been a world champion. So I started fencing with him, and I was with him for about 2 years. My work at that time was construction work, so it took me anywhere I wanted to go.
So now you're getting serious into fencing after Korea?
Oh, yes.
Now,
I was serious before.
How old are we when we first started getting very serious here?
By the time I was able to get very serious, I was about 31. And after I finished with Santelli, I went back to St. Louis for a while and had the opportunity to go to Paris, where I went to school at the Academy of Athletics in Paris under a fencing program. And I became an accredited fencing master there.
How would you compare the fencing program, say, from the United States to Europe? There's a different class of fencer there?
It is hard to compare anything between Europe and here, given the background they have and the backlog they have of fencers. I went to Hungary to direct a high school championship one time. And when I arrived there were 400 contestants. And I told the man I thought I was here for the finals. He said, "You are." And I asked how many they'd had to begin with. He said 74,000.
Wow.
Yeah, that was my feeling. Wow. But they have a great backlog of it. Fencing in Europe is very, very large. Any town you go into, you can find a fencing sale somewhere. And if you go down the streets somewhere wearing a jacket similar to this with the fencing patches on it, people stop and talk to you. They will buy you meals if you'll just talk to them.
Now, compare, you're saying it's big there, it's not as big here. How's our Olympic team? We have one?
We have one. We've had one since 1911. It has not been with any great success.
No golds?
No.
Silver?
We have a bronze.
One?
One. And in the World Games, we have 1 gold medal.
So room for improvement on that.
There's a tremendous room for improvement here. Fencing is a game that requires time and effort. It requires absolute mental, physical control. It's unlike the movies. It is absolute mental, physical control, as you found this morning when you...
I did find that out. Now, you fenced competitively.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about some of the competitions that you fenced in, how you fared.
Well, I had the good fortune of learning to fence in Europe and with a man who had lived in Europe. So when I came back here, I began fencing, and I was 7 times on a national competition. I was 5 times in the European competition, the World Games, and 3 times at the Martini Rossi, which is an invitational in New York. And plus, I fenced everywhere I could, internationals, wherever I could. I fenced in Mexico and Canada, over many countries in Europe, Italy, France, Hungary, and...
What type of fencer is most formidable? Do women fence men in competition, or are they separate?
Only in the lower competitions. In the higher competitions, they have women's classes. However, for many years it was only women's classes and only men's classes. Women only used the foil, which is a light weapon. And at one time it was only posturing for women.
Now, you mentioned before the foil. You have a couple of weapons out here.
This is the foil here.
Here's the foil.
The French handle. This is a standard French handle. It's a beginner's weapon. This particular one is left-handed. It's made for a left-hander. It's held here, of course. The handle is designed and shaped to fit the hand. So if you put it in your right hand, it doesn't work.
I notice your foil looks a little different in the handle. Is there like some kind of competitive edge there that we don't know about?
Well, the competitive edge is this. The idea of holding the weapon is firm but lightly. You manipulate it with your fingers. And much of my early life was spent as an iron worker, using very heavy hammers and things like this. So I have a tendency to grip things. And when I grip this weapon, it pulls this sharp edge into the V of my hand and said, "Lighten up, stupid, you're holding it too tight." And that's exactly what happened. When I grip it too tight, it wedges in there and wears out my glove, as you can see.
I can see. Now, on the women's weapon, are they smaller than the guys, or not as hard?
No difference at all. They're the same all the way.
Figure.
You have three different size lengths of blades. This is number 5, number 4 is shorter, number 3 is shorter than that. You have two sides of the bell guards. One's known as a collegiate, and this is a standard bell guard here. The collegiate's a bit smaller. That's usually for children to use. The whole purpose is, of course, the lightness of the weapon. And while these are very light and very flexible, they are a bit heavy for like an 8 or 9-year-old kid or a 10-year-old kid. So you use a shorter blade and a smaller bell guard.
So you've been fencing now for close to 50 years?
Mm-hmm.
And all that time, have you ever injured, maimed, killed, hurt anyone?
I've seen or heard of 2 people actually injured on a fencing strip. Both of them were Polish. Both of them had been world champions. And both of them were very foolish because they were making running attacks in a sow against someone that they were just playing. The blade broke, penetrated the chest, and both of them died.
That would be bad.
They were very bad. But I've never really seen anyone seriously injured. I've seen little scratches, things like that. Sometimes someone will play around without a glove, and if they do that, then the edge of these weapons get chipped, and they rake across the hand and draw blood from that. But that's the only blood I've ever seen drawn.
You teach here at Delta College.
Correct.
And I think we have some tape of one of your classes right here. Can you guess what we're doing right here?
The 2 young ladies who were fencing this morning, these are beginners. This is their first semester. And obviously they're not terribly experienced, but they are very good for beginners. They're learning to lunge and protect themselves, return the attack, back up, all sorts of things, the maneuvering of the weapon, the maneuvering of their bodies.
How long does it take to learn to fence? Would someone, say, take the class and 3 or 4 lessons, pretty much have it down?
No. It would actually, to become a fencer, what I call a real fencer, where you can parry, repose, go forward, go backward, learn to manipulate your opponent. This is a chess game at 100 miles an hour. And you must learn to operate your opponent, manipulate them, to take charge of the strip. And that takes about 4 years.
Now, fencing, is this the most popular style of sword fighting? There are several others.
There are several others, but most of those are fun things more than they are competitions. You have the anachronist who run around banging on armor and that sort of thing. And then you have some others who go way afield with things. In different parts of the countryside will do things. Now, here's 2 young men here. Obviously, they haven't developed to where the 2 young ladies are.
They're a little bit...
They're hesitant and they're stiff and they're as typical American male trying to use their body strength to do something, and it doesn't work that way in this weapon.
So are you saying that men are generally better fencers, women are better?
Not necessarily. It depends on the woman. Little lady coming up in a few minutes here, Rebecca, and Rebecca began a couple of years ago. She's very strong, very light, very supple. And one of my students is a gentleman we call Tiny, who is at 6'7" and 279 pounds.
Big target.
And she will fence him and beat him. And Tiny's very good. So size really isn't it. For many years I fought in the nationals, and in the finals, if I could reach the finals, there were some men I was going to meet in that top 5. One was Hutsborough Kawa, who was 5 feet and weighed one time at 103 pounds. Paul Etter was 245 pounds at 6'4". Joe Elliott was 6'6" and about 170 pounds.
So there's no weigh-in on this kind of thing.
No. When I was 180 pounds at 6'2". So the variation was up and down.
So classes at the upper classes are done by gender and then by skill level?
Skill level, right.
Okay, now once we go on past the foil, we learn to use that. You have several other weapons. Could you show us the difference?
I use the saber next. The foil target is only the torso. Anything inside the seams, if you land on the bib, it's off target. The groin, in the groin area is good. This is a cutting weapon, and from the hip, top of the hips up, anything up is a target.
Legs are out.
Out. The entire leading edge is good. 1/3 of the back of the blade is good, and the point is good. You have a larger bell guard because you must protect your hand, because that is also a target in this weapon. And you cut with it. In truth, you only need the first 2 inches of the blade. That's what you cut with. The rest of it just gets it to your opponent.
Looks a little more formidable, hacking-like.
No, you don't use it that way. In fact, it's lighter than the foil. And Santelli, who trained me, when he was training me, would put a balloon on his helmet and had me attack him and hit the balloon and not break it. Had to be a light, firm tap, that's all. Just you control your weapon. It's mental, physical control. It's not drawing back and like you're chopping trees or something. The arm comes straight out and you cut with your fingers.
Did you break the balloon a lot at first?
No.
Okay, right.
But I practice a lot too.
This kind of looks like the Holy Grail here upside down. Tell me a little bit about this right here.
This is known as an epee, or dueling sword. And it's an offshoot of the old rapier that you see in the movies. However, this is not a weapon that you bang with and that sort of thing as they do in the movies. Only the point is good. It's a stiffer weapon than the foil, and it has a larger bell guard because every part of the body is a target. Only the point is good, but any part of the body is a target. So if you've got a smaller bell guard, they'd be digging your arms and that sort of thing. This bell guard's pretty well banged up because you stop a lot of hits coming at you with the bell guard. It's got a few years on it, probably about 25 years, something like that. It has a slight curve in it because I'm allowed 1 centimeter bend up or down, whichever way I want it.
Okay.
And to me, I like to go up underneath so I could go up and cut underneath the hand here and dig into the hand. There's a little piece of glove that usually sticks down here, and I could land on that.
Now, I understand that we have a couple fencers here today, a couple students of yours, who are going to demonstrate strip fencing for us?
Yes.
And you're going to referee or judge the match for us?
That's correct.
Okay. We'll do that when we come back. Stay tuned with us. I'm Skip Lang with Impact.